So if you could just tell me a little bit about yourself.
All right, first, thanks for doing this, Carson. Um, I am a self-employed musician and have been so for about 20 years or so. I've been a musician most of my life, but prior to that, I worked in broadcasting and worked for Cumulus Broadcasting. And some people may remember me from back in the day. I hosted Morning Edition for quite a few years on the local NPR station. So sort of come out of that neighborhood, even worked for a newspaper when I was about your age and did that for quite a few years. So writing, journalism, broadcasting, all that's been important to me for a long time. These days, I guess among the most important things in my life would be my grandchildren. And I mean, I love my wife and my daughter and son and all that, but my grandkids really light up my world. And I got involved in Signal Mountain. I hate the word politics, but in Signal Mountain government, and because I like the process and I love logic, and I'm sort of a philosophy nerd, and it seemed like a good way to put it all into practice. And I also never served in the military, and at about 60, which is where I am now, it feels like it's a good time for me to do some public service, and it's all an unpaid thing. And I'm 4 years into that. I have about 2 years to go, and I'm pretty sure I'll be feeling like I've fulfilled that at that point and be done with it.
That is totally awesome. I can totally get where you're coming from about really liking the process and the philosophy of it all. I'm kind of at a point where I'm considering where I want to go with my studies in college. And right now I'm really thinking about political science, but focusing on public policy, because I really do enjoy the process and how and I think that's the part of me that thought about being a lawyer and is now thinking about engineering.
Interesting.
But yeah, I totally get where you're coming from with that. That's really awesome. So if you could explain a little bit about, your feelings of switching careers and that calling.
Yeah, so I don't look at this at my public service as a career at all. I think that's the way this type of government should work. And just a little bit of backstory, and I have a much more longer, boring version than this short, boring version I'm going to give you, but about 7 or 8 years ago, I started a thing in Chattanooga called the Chattanooga Junto, and it was based on something when I was in my 20s, I read a Ben Franklin biography. And when they were working on the Constitution of the United States, a group of people, unfortunately at that time it was all men, but had a club basically they called the Junto, and they would get together, and everyone who was a member of the club had the responsibility of presenting one idea that would be good for public service. And the purpose of this was for people to show you why it won't work. Not, oh, you're awesome, what a wonderful idea. Let's pick this apart, and that's what the Socratic method is all about. So anyway, did that for a few years, and we had quite a few people involved in that. So I just remember thinking, this is like a game. There was an election coming up. Why don't I just run for office? And I did that and expected that we would have great Socratic debates about potholes and, things like that. And then, bam, there was a move to succeed, for the school system to split. So boom, we were right in the middle of it. And it was that first 4 years, the first 2 years in particular was quite a ride.
Yeah, I definitely saw that ride, and that definitely was something that it was really great to have people who had the leadership mindset of listening and being thorough with what was happening, and looking for both sides of every argument. So that's definitely very appreciated. So this year has definitely not been a normal year for any of us by any means, especially for public servants trying to figure out how to lead the community in these times. So do you think you could speak a little to how you guys have adapted to that, and any kind of takeaways that you might have gotten from that for other people as they're continuing to adapt?
That courage to be disliked philosophy is really important if you want to do this, because as we headed into the whole COVID situation, I remember kind of wrestling with what to say, because I was mayor, and here you are. Mayors are supposed to show some leadership and at least let folks in town know, even though we're small, and it's not like mayor here has a lot of decision-making power at all. In this town, in our government type, we're all co-equals, and the mayor basically just chairs the meeting, but still you have to chair the meeting. And anything that you say that can be used to make it look like something awful is happening is going to be repeated in every newspaper, every online thing. It's just, you just have to be more careful than I think you should really need to be in parsing your words. So, but you do the best you can with the information you have at the time, and then later you might have to change that. So does that answer the question?
I think so. I think that's some really good advice. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with in general, and especially right now, is just kind of having the confidence to try something at all, because sometimes you know that things might not carry over the way that you want them to, but you got to try something. I think that's a really great right now. Kind of to switch gears a little bit, and go back to kind of your career with music and broadcasting. I think that's really cool. That's really interesting. And I know that might be something that our viewers may be interested in as potential careers. So do you think you could kind of give some advice about how you got into that, and that career path?
I will, but it's changed so much, and it changed based on, I guess I was 17 when I became the youth editor of the newspaper in the town where I grew up in Kennet, Missouri, the Daily Duncan Democrat. And I remember the editorial cartoonist at that paper, my name is Danny, everybody calls me Dan, and he said, "Danny, you're learning how to do too much." Because I did. That's when I learned my photography skills and my darkroom skills and my layout skills and just all those things. But it was great. And the scholarship, the only scholarship that I got was a journalism scholarship, and it wasn't a big one. And when I went to school, which I didn't finish, I'll confess that right now. So don't do what I did. Stay. You need to stay. That's my advice. And I do pretty well on the stage as a musician. I've toured and done well. I toured with Yanni for a few years, and you may not know who that is, but long-haired Greek piano player, and have played pretty much every major stage in the United States, as well as done a couple of other continents. So that was exciting.
I think that's some really good advice. I think that's something that could stick with a lot of people as they're trying to figure out their career paths, because there's definitely different voices for you as you're trying to figure out different influences as you try to figure out your career path.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. This was awesome. Is there anything else that you would like to kind of say in closing thoughts or closing, statements?
No, I'm just really happy. This was fun. And do it again if I can ever help with anything. Let me know.
Awesome. Thank you so much.